going to go live, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Just so you guys know. Just so you don't say anything
Is that a fiddle leaf?
stupid. Yeah, fiddle leaf fig.
Wait, it is.
Yeah?
I remember.
Some of them.
You plant girl.
Yeah.
No, because it sounds also like Lord of the Rings. It sounds like it would be in the book.
Yeah, a fiddle leaf fig sounds like something in Fangorn
Yeah.
Forest.
So true.
The fiddle leaf fig. Yeah, some of these plants over here, people online can't watch or can't see them. But there's a leaf coming right,
Well, there's
like for Danny's
one.
head,
They
because that
can't
leaf
see
is
that
right in the way.
Leaf by my head.
Huh?
What?
Oh, that
And this,
leaf.
look, there's that leaf right there. Is like pointing straight, actually straight at Jen.
Perspective.
Oh, God.
Nice.
Pointing straight at the flag of Rohan.
Violation. This
Was
is
that
why I don't
Duolingo?
put my phone on. No, just text. No, but I should.
Without me, no.
The thing
you
is,
shouldn't.
life's been too busy to learn another language. And then
Yeah.
we had 2 Argentinian girls stay with us for Luke and Olivia's wedding.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, their English is so much better than my Spanish will ever be. And we have so much technology to assist where
I
the
know.
gaps are. But I still want to learn at some point.
Mom's response to the wedding was, she said it was in her top like 5 weddings she's ever been to. She loved it, but she said that because she's like, it was the most emotionally charged wedding she's ever been to.
Oh,
goodness.
Yeah,
Of like she was like, you just know Luke and like Olivia are just so like in tune with their emotions. Just she's there, there was singing, there was crying, there was everything.
It was intense. Those vows were next level. You hear
Really?
the comments of, I've been married for 40 years and my husband's never said anything like that to me.
Did they write their own vows then?
Yeah, they
That's
did.
cute.
They were pretty impressive. And then Luke did a mini set of 3 songs.
I love that.
And it was the whole thing. Oh, man.
It's the real deal.
What a day. Yeah, he's very in touch with his emotions. He's a feeler.
Love that.
Learn from him.
Frames dropping. Hold on.
No,
now.
it's fine.
1 sec. Frames are dropping. Let me see if I can fix that. Encoding overloaded. Consider turning down. Hold on. We are all over the place.
Whoa.
Were you guys in the wedding?
Yeah, I was.
Groomsmen?
Best man responsibilities.
Love that.
Hectic.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you have to do?
Well, it wasn't like that bad, but it was really just planning the bachelor party and then just a lot of like driving around and logistics and the Argentinian girls, and then after the wedding in the morning, like coordinating between hotel and whatever, and then I drove them back to New York because they had flights out. So it was just like a lot of moving around. It was a blast, but it's like being in a room with like hundreds of people that I could sit down and have hour-long conversations with, and I'm like, guess I'm gonna get none of that.
Yeah.
So it was still nice to be in a hotel and catch up with people, but I feel like I still barely got outside of like the inner circle. So I'm like, oh man, it would have been nice to sit down with so many other people. But it was great. Lots of dancing. Sweaty dance floor.
All right. We have frames dropping. That's all right. We'll plug on. I'm recording this on the side too, so if anybody who's watching and it drops out, no, I have a backup and I'll post it later. So don't fret.
Nice.
Well,
Well,
what do you guys think of Rohan? What do you guys think of Treebeard? I have so many questions, so many things I want to talk about these chapters.
so many.
So good. And Jen's finally watching the movie, so she knows what we're talking
I
about.
watch the movies.
And aren't they
We're
incredible?
watching. Yeah, what do you think of the movies?
Yeah, it's still really great. I don't remember a lot of it. The scenery is really pretty, but it's funny. I'm like, what would it look like now with the technology? Because of all the what is that called? When it's
What, like CGI?
yeah, that.
Yeah.
But I feel like each character is pretty good too. I feel like they portray the book characters pretty well compared to like Harry Potter.
Yeah, Harry Potter is out the window.
Yeah, I was like, this is way better. But overall, I like the pacing of it too. Like I feel like it's not as slow as the book in some parts.
Yeah.
And we're still watching extended, so
Ooh, wow.
If that doesn't feel too slow, then
Doesn't
good.
that go against your proposal?
It kind of does. But I couldn't remember because I haven't seen the regular version for so long that I was like, I think in my head, the extended ones are closer to the books.
Yeah, I think so.
Where there might be scenes that actually happen in the books that then get cut out. So then I was like, I don't know what is better as far as giving proper background. But like the scene that we just saw, the graves, and Theoden goes over and picks up one of the flowers, and then he lets it fall, and he talks about how it grows only on the graves, and then that was in the book. And then I was like, was that in the movie?
No.
Because I was like, in theatrical, I just couldn't remember, but it was such a great detail.
Yeah.
So that like
Honestly,
kind of solidified it where I'm
that's
like,
a
I think we have to just
great
keep
point,
watching the extended.
I feel like I only saw it once in theaters, but I feel like all the things I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this, but that scene in the forest when they're drinking the water and the
Oh yeah, that was definitely a bonus one.
like,
I remember being
saw that
excited
one.
about that.
And then the grave one, I was like, I don't remember this either.
Because they do bury his son
But then I
in the
think that
theatrical.
was it.
But yeah, I don't know how much of her song and how much of the bonus scenes there are.
It's interesting because I don't know if I've said this before, but our family used to only watch the extended edition, and the only scene my parents ever skipped was the scene where Eowyn sings. And so whenever I watch it on my own, I always skip that scene too. I was like, oh, I don't want to watch this. And then I watched it for a few years ago, like the first time, and it's like my favorite scene now. I love it so much. I think it's such an emotionally powerful scene. And she's singing in like high Rohirric or something like that.
What is she saying?
I forgot exactly what the song is.
Bella.
Yeah, there you go.
That's how it starts, and that's all I got.
And then the scene with Theoden too, when he's like throwing the symbol Myrna, and he's like, "Ever does it, grow on the tombs of my forebears? Ever will it grow on the grave of my son?" And then like the music swells and plays. It's just such a good scene.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the funeral in the book, which I was bummed about.
Yeah, they kind of they were hamming it up for the movie a little.
Yeah,
because
which I don't mind. I think it was good. He
wasn't alive.
Yeah.
I
Right.
didn't get to that chapter.
You don't really know who Theodred. Like Theodred is just labeled as the king's son in the book, and that's all you really know. I like that they did give him like a little bit more of a role in the movies. But I do like too the symbol Myrna when they're going into Edoras was so much cooler in the books than the movie, because like the whole side of the city was white, and it's a flower that blooms in like winter, spring, summer, or fall. And they were talking about how like it just like covers all these mounds of the kings. It's like so cool. I think it's so fascinating.
Lizzie, what stood out?
I don't know. I'm happy to be reading Theoden because he's like my favorite from the movies. So
Oh yeah,
I'm
what makes him your favorite?
the fate, but then also just like winning the war, because then they ride out onto that like bridge and all
Ride
the
with
orcs
me.
start. They ride out onto that like bridge and all
Ride
the
with
orcs start
me.
jumping
Yeah.
off. Yeah. So I was
Is
excited for
there-
that.
Theodorn is the one.
What Theoden is the
Theoden?
king who
Theod.
was all like
He was
shrivelly
yeah.
and kind of dark and like.
Oh, okay.
They
Because
kind
then
of
there
bring
was
back
the
to
other
life.
guy with the battle. With
what
the
do you think his
orcs?
name is?
Oh.
Got any guesses?
I have no idea.
No, names are tough on this one. Eomer maybe, real tall guy.
The one that was
Carl
charging the.
Carl Urban's so good.
He's so great.
I am so bad with names. I have no.
Trying to think if he's in anything you'd know.
Wait,
Yeah,
what is-
he's not in a ton, to be honest. He's in the Bourne
Are you
movies.
talking about actor?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Name now. I have like it sounds. It sounds like a Lord of the Rings
Carl
character.
Urban. Yeah. You don't know
Carl
Carl
Urban of
Carl Urban?
Rohan?
Just
Yeah,
one
yeah.
name.
I was like, I don't know. Why are you doing this to me?
And Bernard Hill of Rohan. Yeah, these are very royal names. But yeah, Eomer I think is the one that ran into Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas in the field at first and gave them the horses. Yeah. So what about him?
I thought that's what she was talking about.
Oh. Yeah, because he's pretty cool.
Because I didn't
But
actually
Lizzie
read the
likes
third
Theoden
chapter.
better.
Oh, it's okay.
I read.
But that's why it was so great that we watched the movies.
I know. Seriously,
It
you'll
was great.
know what we're talking about.
One thing that's annoying on the audiobook is the chapters are off.
Like the name of the chapter is the wrong.
So I
Number?
re-listened because I wasn't really paying attention
Really?
last time to an hour of chapter 3. you click chapter 4, but it says like when he's speaking, he's saying chapter 3, and I was like, maybe he just got it wrong, but like I wasn't fully paying attention, so I listened to the whole thing, and then I was like, oh, like where are we at? And he's like, you're like a chapter behind now. I was like, okay.
That's all right. At least you have the movies down too, so you can kind of keep up. Yeah. That's so annoying. I'll say too, as just started going before we start, I was listening a little bit to the audiobook just on a walk today, and Andy Serkis is so good except for the songs. He is so bad at singing these songs. Ooh. Did you get to the one with Treebeard, or are you singing that song?
Oh god.
I had to turn it off because it was so bad. It was like
might be tough.
Atrocious.
What's his Treebeard voice like? Is it real
great.
slow?
Oh no, it's good voice,
but then when he's singing, it's just too much.
His vocals for like any character are perfect, and then he starts singing, and you're like, just shut up.
The orcs are annoying too. He does a really good job, but they're just annoying.
Yeah.
They kind of should be.
They're like violent. Yeah.
Almost. I love the Scottish accent for Gimli. I didn't realize till we heard it in the car on the way here. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he does Merry and Pippin with different like Scottish or Irish accents, and then he does Gimli.
No, I haven't listened to anything.
It's good. But let's just jump into some analysis of this. Welcome to the podcast. I'm John.
No, Jen.
Danny.
I'm Lizzie.
And this is the Fellowship of the First Time Readers. So let's jump into chapter 4, which is Treebeard. Great chapter. Let's do a summary of this one.
Am I the summary guy again?
You're the summary guy.
All right. Treebeard. Merry and Pippin go into the forest to escape orcs, and they meet Treebeard. He's awesome, and he calls an Entmoot and rouses the Ents to destroy Isengard.
Love that.
That's brief, but it was a long chapter.
Entmoot.
Pretty awesome.
Did you get to this section in the movies, Jen?
Did I get to this?
To the Entmoot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right?
Well, not really the Entmoot, actually.
Yeah. The meeting of Treebeard, at least?
Because, meeting of Treebeard, and then the extended scene where Merry and Pippin are drinking the water and kind of growing.
True.
Yeah.
But the Entmoot gets nudged farther so that Isengard stuff happens right at the end when everything else is happening.
But I listened to that part.
Yeah.
Which was cool. That was funny, listening to their songs, too.
Yeah.
Wait, that's what you said. That
Merry and Pippin?
No. The end, like when they were all getting charged up.
That was kind of fun. I like that a little bit more. He's not the greatest singer, but that section in the books just was so fantastic. And I was a little bummed because the movies just depicted it different. It makes Pippin smarter, although Pippin is smarter in the books, but it makes him have like a smarter moment in the movie when he's essentially the one that figures out Treebeard and like tells him to go, let's go south, because the Entmoot happens.
Because he brings him there. Yeah,
the Entmoot decides that they're not going to go to war. Sorry, in the movies.
You're right. You're right.
And then they change it, and then Pippin's the one that like decides. Convinces Treebeard to go south and then trees.
And so he sees what's happening.
It's a great scene in the movies.
Yeah.
But it's an even better scene in the books because like they all uniformly decide on this and they're like marching down together and they're like singing songs and they're like rousing each other up.
I also liked how the Ents, or what's his name, Treebeard?
Yeah.
He he trusted the Merry and Pippin. He didn't like bring them to Gandalf the wizard to like figure out if they were orcs or not. He was just like willing to accept them.
Yeah, because that was weird in the movie.
Yeah.
It kind of felt a little bit funny that they ran into Gandalf too.
First.
Yeah, and I also felt like Treebeard in the movie, after reading this chapter, I was like, oh, you know what? I like him more in the book. Cliche to say now. Yeah. But I think he was less skeptical. He was like, I heard your voices and I trusted you, and I'm glad I heard your voices before I saw you, or I would have just killed you thinking you were orcs. Yeah. But then I feel like by the time he got to the Entmoot, he was already like solidly on the side of Merry and Pippin. He already knew he wanted to go to Isengard, and he wasn't so skeptical or like, I don't know, something about it. I was happy with him in the books. Pretty excited.
Yeah, he was a more interesting character in the books, I think. Yeah, I'm a fan of Treebeard. I like how they met. I like how he's wise in the movies, but he's just so much more like compelling and interesting of a character in the book. Like the things that he's saying about like even Saruman and like what he thinks of Saruman, and then like even the idea of hasty folk. Like one line that I really loved is he said, "I'm honored by your confidence, but you should not be too free all at once. There are ents and ents, you know, or there are ents and things that look like ents but ain't, as you might say. I'll call you Merry and Pippin if you please. Nice names. For I am not going to tell you my name, not yet at any rate." A queer, half-knowing, half-humorous look came within the green flicker into his eyes. "For one thing, it would take a long while. My name is growing all the time, and I've lived a very long time, so my name is like a story. Real names tell you the story of the things they belong to in my language. In the old Entish, as you might say. It's a lovely language, but it takes a very long time to say anything in it, because we do not say anything unless it is worth taking a long time to say and to listen to." Like they synthesize that line in the movies, but in the books it's just so great. And then I love the idea that his name is like a story too. It's just so fascinating. I love the Ents.
And I feel like this was a classic JRR moment because I've been waiting for more linguistic things.
Yeah.
The intro was like this whole book was just to give history to the Elvish language. And I'm like, this feels like he developed their Ent language.
Yeah.
Like just a cool concept. Like
Agreed.
older things have longer names. And it's a language that takes time.
Yeah.
Just so great.
And then it's cool too because Gandalf says that he's like the oldest creature in Middle Earth in the next chapter.
The oldest thing to walk around. Yeah.
Under the sun on
I'm
Middle
like,
Earth. So maybe there's older things in the deep places of the earth.
He knows Tom Bombadil.
Yeah.
They're buddies.
I feel like I like them in the books, and they seem smarter to me in the books because they're not as slow. Like they're rambling in the books. But the movies make them seem like they're so slow that they're dumb to me.
Yeah, you're right.
They're
That
just
is
like
true.
a waste of time of like, okay, get to like the important thing. But then in the books, they're like, we only say the important things, like take the time. I don't know. I like them better. But I feel like it's a good interpretation. You know?
Agreed. I think it still is a good interpretation of it. Now, here's one of my questions is what do Ents look like to you guys?
Well, they're not just like straight up trees.
Are they not, Lizzie? I don't know.
That's so confusing.
Trees anymore.
Because it talks about their skin being bark-like, but like they even get confused. Are they trees? Are they not trees? They're not really trees that they are, but they take on the form of trees.
But didn't they like start further from like a tree and then they've like evolved into more trees?
That's what I think, but I don't know.
And it feels like when you
true.
stop being an Ent, like from old age, you just fade into full-time treeness.
Yeah.
So like they have to be pretty close to trees. But then in the movie,
but he's also the oldest one, so he probably is very tree-like.
Yeah, true.
Maybe
But
there's
then
like
I was like, what?
two
How do the arms
legs.
work? And like in my head, you could walk by an Ent in the forest and you would not know that he was there if he didn't want you to.
Yeah.
So I pictured them like they are a tree.
You wouldn't notice it.
Like, well, yeah, I can't even notice this on the wall. And so I'm like, even the movie version, like just watching it, maybe the 20 years, the timing, whatever. I'm like, he does stand out in the forest a little bit. So I don't know. I was going back and forth. I couldn't quite picture it.
Yeah.
And each one looks really unique. And young ones look like young trees.
You guys, by the way, I haven't told you this yet, but you guys should totally check out the artwork of Ted Naismith on Lord of the Rings. It is so good. He does this one, and it's one of my favorites.
You're writing it down?
Of course.
You text it to me?
I think his grandfather invented basketball. James Naismith.
He does this one. So
means
this
nothing.
is his meeting with Merry and Pippin. It's like here's Merry and Pippin, and then this is Treebeard just chilling with his butt out. If he apparated, his apparition noise would be loud.
It'd be huge. Wow.
But like he's just chilling here with his back face to them, like sprawled out.
I also feel like they stop moving and they become more tree-like, and then you kind of like wake them up and they become more human. So like you could walk past them and miss them, and then like you start talking to them, and then you realize like, oh, you're like fully sentient. I don't know.
That's kind of true. Although,
Part of the traveling.
what are you guys looking at?
Moria.
Oh yeah, he does all the fellowship.
Arrival at the Shire.
He does. It's you guys got to check it out.
What's his name?
Ted Naismith. Like, I'm obsessed with his artwork. It's so good. And then
was he involved in the movies at all?
No, the two people who were involved in the movies were John Howe and Alan Lee. And they were like John Howe just did. I think he just did like busts of people, like portraits of like orcs and like characters, because it's all I see his work. Alan Lee was a bit more detailed, but Ted Naismith is my favorite, and he does George R.R. Martin. He just like spends his time like illustrating these works, and
what a life.
I'm like, I know, and like people are putting these in books, and he's
that is
so good.
Cool. Oh, I love his Rivendell.
Yeah, he does a bunch of different ones too. Like he does a few different ones of Rivendell. He did a few different ones of even Treebeard and what the Ents look like. But he does different ones of the Ents because in some they look like trees, and some they don't look like trees, and some they look like they're like beings that are just walking around that are just 14 feet tall.
Big booty
Treebeard. It's the one where he's just sitting on the rock ledge. Ooh, yeah, the Argonath.
Oh yeah, like this one.
Yeah, like what is that? Yeah, that's the Entmoot. And he has another one where I guess this is one is where they're like all marching out, because it's like I think it's the quad of Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and it's just these Ents that are standing on the edge of the woods, like looking straight out and like calling to something almost.
These ones just look like people with
like
vines on them.
Yeah. Some of these, like, look at this one. It like looks they're kind of like, you could maybe confuse them for a tree, but like not a living tree really.
Yeah.
More like a stumpy.
I kind of like that.
But they have two legs. They have toes. I don't know if I'm gonna get off of.
I'm like
they have some of 7, but some of 3. Some of 10.
True.
3 to 9, I thought.
Yeah,
right?
3 to 9.
Nice, Jen.
Crushing it.
All right.
Love it.
Come on.
Look what happens when she knows the movies now. She's counting toes. But
they also walk so fast.
I know.
They
like
fast.
I feel like
Just 'cause
miles
they're so
and
tall.
miles.
Well,
yeah.
We were just talking
Mile
before you guys
calculation.
came in. He did 70K steps. More than that. Like they counted at the minimum. Treebeard's like, I just did 70K in one day to get to Treebeard's house, I think. Or to get to the Entmoot, whatever one.
Yeah, I think the house. Yeah.
Which I've done, I think like 30 to 40,000 steps in one day once. Or like a few times, like backpacking. And then like you're literally walking all day. And you do like 20, 25 miles. He must be doing, no joke, he doubled that. And then Ent steps.
They must be huge.
They must have gone from 100 to 150 miles that day.
Well, I noticed it when it was like he crossed the stream. And I was like, oh, like
Just
in
one
one
step.
step. Like he literally crossed the stream. It's crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
I guess they're speedy.
Are
you going to sneeze?
No, I think it's
We're
facing
smelling
me.
someone.
Downwind.
Oh, yeah, you're downwind from a source. You can open a window too if you want.
Keep it on that side.
It's like right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. He sprays it. He can be rough sometimes. But there's a scene in the movies where I think Merry and Pippin are talking when they're on like the door of Fangorn, and they talk about the old forest and how the elves came and seemed to wake the trees up. And Treebeard talks about how the Ents were kind of cured of their muteness by the elves. But in the movies, I always thought the elves like created Ents. And it's not like that. I don't think the books have that.
I a little bit did think of it though.
Really?
Yeah, like I'd have to find the line, but it felt like Treebeard credited the elves with maybe not their creation in the traditional sense, but it almost felt like he just like, what did they say? Awakened them?
Yeah.
So yeah, like takes away their muteness.
Yeah.
But it felt like they couldn't move before that. And maybe couldn't communicate. Was it like gave them their speech? I forget what it was.
Yeah.
But I almost, in my mind, I took that to be like the elves created them. But maybe that's too broad stroke to
I like that. It's interesting too, because when they're classifying the beings, really in their song, there's 4 groups of beings, and orcs aren't included in that, but it's men, Ents, elves, and dwarves, and then they add line onto hobbits, which I love.
Yep.
But that makes me also think that if Ents are singing these songs, they knew that they were beings before the elves maybe created them. But I don't think I wouldn't say that the elves created them. I feel like the elves just gave them speech or gave them a language, which I feel like is key for Tolkien.
You're right.
Probably.
You're right.
Like I feel like if you have a language, then that makes you like a form of being that gives you like agency a little bit more than just like, a creature like an eagle, or like he has like the badger or whatever. The snake is the slyest or whatever he says. So, I don't know. I think language plays a huge part into that. The elves just gave them a language, I'm guessing, and then they just kind of developed that language into what they wanted, which is like just a very long form of language.
But what about the Entwives though? Because aren't those like more people-y?
What about those Entwives?
Yeah,
so
seriously.
weird.
It seems like
that
the
whole
antithesis
part.
of a tree.
Yeah.
If they're like doing the landscape.
And they lost them?
And they lost
Wait.
them. To me, it seemed
I
like
was
the
so
Entwives were like...
confused about that.
Interesting.
To me,
I was confused too, but this is new.
Wait.
Keep going. Huh.
Well,
I don't know.
Treebeard's also saying what the Entwives went to do, and they like went across. There was a theory that someone threw out in the Discord that people, I think, disproved, but someone said like hobbits are the real Entwives, or hobbits are the fruition of the Entwives, or something like. I feel like that's not true, but they went off across, and people think they dwell in Hobbiton because Hobbiton would be the perfect place for them. They like the pastures, and they like organizing. And it was like they saw these young things that they can control and organize and went across to them. So like Treebeard was telling the story, and I was like, the Entwives are just like type A, like promiscuous women. They didn't like the Ents, so they're saying, honey, you stay here. I'm going after foreign lands. I'm going to chase after the cherry trees and the poplar trees and organize them and keep them like, exactly where I need them to be. I feel like they couldn't control the Ents. I'm so curious more about the lore of the Ents and the Entwives. I want
Wait, so
all
you're
the
saying the
know.
Entwife is a tree?
I don't think so.
The
I don't think it's a
Entwives were a
person.
tree.
I think they're more closely looking like Ents than they are like than they are like people. But I don't know. I would classify them as.
How do you lose them?
I don't know.
Running away.
I thought I heard like in the garden, and then they got lost.
Yeah.
Because they go out and they search for them, and they keep trying to go further and further, and they can't find them. I thought there was like some original species that like Ents and Entwives came from, and then in my mind, the Ents planted themselves in the woods and then became tree-like because they were like content to stay there, and then the Entwives were like, oh, we want to be out and about. And then they just started, I don't know, but then the fact that they're like gardening is weird. Yeah, and they just kept going, moving away further and further.
I view them, there's a depiction in I just kept having this picture in my head in Chronicles of Narnia in the movies. They depict dryads and naiads, I think, which are like tree spirits. And to me, the Entwives, yes, they seem like more like Ents than they do people, but like they're the pretty trees that like they flower, and like I almost depicted them as like the flowers that like they go around and they make the things beautiful, and they like have form of the flowers and the trees. They feel less like tree-like to me. They feel more like
they're decorations.
Yeah, like maybe, I guess, I don't know. That makes sense to me that they're like carried by the wind. Like I don't know. I don't understand it. It's so bizarre to me. But
carried by like they're blowing away.
Yeah, like they take shape of like flowers. It's like I'll give you a good Harry Potter analogy. You know, in the movies when they try to scare people that go into 12 Grimmauld Place by like that dust Moody.
Yeah.
Like that's an Entwife. Like the flowers are all on the ground, and all of a sudden those flowers take form. Those flowers take shape, and they become this Entwife. And then I guarantee you, the people who are Lord of the Rings fans are like, nope, go read the Silmarillion. You're just an idiot.
So there could be more.
That's the picture that I have in my head of what the Entwives look like. But their story is so fascinating to me.
It says the Entwives knew where whiter blossom and richer fruit were growing. I underlined that and said, who hurt J.R.R.?
Yeah.
This feels personal. It feels like he's like throwing it out there. Like women aren't what they used to be, you know, like he had a couple bad experiences because it felt too specific.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, poor guy. He's been through it.
He's been scorned.
Every season they go out looking for the Entwives, can't find them. I did note earlier in the chapter, it was talking about Pippin and when he met Treebeard, and then it was like a funny thing that he does when it goes into like history mode. Often afterwards, Pippin tried to describe his first impression of them, and it was just a single line, but it takes you out of the story and kind of tells you Pippin survives this whole thing, which you kind of already know because it was Merry or Pippin who was going to be the historian and kind of take notes. So I'm like, oh man, it's such a fascinating little thing when you're like worried about it, and then it's like, oh wait, he survives. Well, but it's weird. Like, what a weird thing to like give that hint so early on.
Well, that was,
or did I misread it?
No, you didn't misread it, but it's Pippin. So Merry's the one that's going to keep the records because he's like, I'm going to go and tell, in the previous chapter, he's like, all right, I think it went in this chapter. He's like, I'm going to go tell, Bilbo all your accolades. And
right.
Like, say, and Merry is one who knew the maps. But in that section, it says that he was going to tell the description of them. But it gives what Pippin says. What he would say, because he was describing the eyes, because in that section it said what their eyes look like.
One felt and then there was enormous well behind them.
And then exactly. And then that next paragraph, it describes how Pippin described the eyes to his friends. I totally
missed that, because then I took that as like just him in the moment again. Yeah, but that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Which it's a great description on their eyes. I'm like, Pippin really had a good grasp on what their eyes look like. Because it's so beautiful. Yeah, I like highlighted that, and I'm like, he's so good with his words here, and I love that was their understanding of Ents too. It like came from their eyes. Like they knew that they were good and kind creatures based on their eyes. And then when they have the Entwu, all these other Ents come, but Treebeard's eyes are the deepest and like the greenest and the goldest and the brownest, and like they have all these hues to them. That's one thing that when they were describing the eyes, I was like, I would love to see what like an Ent's eyes really look like. That seems like the coolest thing in Middle Earth. That's like so valuable. But yeah, that was a great description. Even going on to that too, like this is maybe, actually let me ask this question before. The Ents talk about something called the Great Darkness a lot. Treebeard mentions it a few times. He's like, these things haven't happened since the Great Darkness or whatever that was.
Yeah, and it was like capitalized.
Yeah, it was capitalized.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any understanding what that is?
Probably one of the ages or something.
Yeah, right?
Probably like ended an age or started one.
Because it's interesting. I like getting their perspective too, because like, I like their idea of don't be hasty. These things are happening and they're just taking their time deciding and deliberating, like ages come and ages go, but they're still remaining steady, and they're like, they've seen, the terrors of the world. But this Great Darkness to me seems like the worst event in like Middle Earth, for the Ents at least.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was maybe the rise of Sauron, or it seems to predate that to me. It seems to be like almost the formation of Middle Earth as they know it.
Yeah, a shadow of the Great Darkness lying there still away north.
Yeah.
And bad memories are handed down. So I'm like, well, what happened up north? In my mind, there's not much up north. I think Aragorn kind of came from up there, and then the elves from Rivendell went up to do something.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know what was up there. And what is this shadow of the Great Darkness up there? And so there's still darkness?
That made me think, because there's only one volcano in Middle Earth, right? That's Mount Doom.
Never thought about it.
And so I'm only thinking of that because I'm reading some Brandon Sanderson, and like there's these things called the ash mounts, these volcanoes that just spew ash in the land, and it's cloudy every single day, and they don't know what the stars look like. I'm like, maybe the Great Darkness was a time when Mount Doom just erupted, and there was like clouds over the sky for, I don't know, maybe like a century or something crazy like that. I don't know.
And there could still be some of that up north.
And Ents needed, there still could have been that up north, and Ents need sunlight in order to like thrive and grow, so they weren't getting that. I don't know. That's what I kind of think it is, but...
Do you think that's when he like made the rings?
Maybe, yeah, honestly. Like maybe he made the rings and like his evil was spreading throughout the entirety of Middle Earth, and because again, orcs need shade, they have bad sunburn. They need cover, so that's what the Mount Doom kind of gives them if it erupts, I guess.
The little words we got here, I think in Ent, in the appendix it says black shadow in the deep dales of the forest is what that means. So I guess maybe same kind of vibe.
But there's also a point too where because I keep thinking about this because Lizzie, you were talking about Dune last time. You're like, I like how it's the you go in not knowing anything, and the first novel tells you all about it, and like you're walking, and I'm like, I would love a novel like that, so I'm like, I definitely want to read Dune, but I also love this so much
tempted.
because there's so much like behind every single word. Like I think Lord of the Rings was one of the last things he wrote. I might be totally wrong about that, but I think it was one of the later things he wrote. But he already had all these histories, so this is like the culmination of all of his work, all of his like research, and he just throws something like the Great Darkness in there. Probably assuming his audience should know what it is if they followed his work, but here I am reading his like, culmination of his work first, not knowing anything, but it's so exciting because there's so much else that I get to like read know and try to figure out. But
I'm like not like that, so I just have the attitude. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like I'll Google it. Like I don't have maybe with this I would get into it and be like all into the lore. Yeah. But for the most part, I just want to read my book. Enjoy it and be done and like not have to think about it too much.
I feel that.
But yeah, because like I read that and I'll spend like 5 seconds thinking about it, and then I'm just like, I don't know what it is, and then I keep reading, and I'm like, I'm not stuck on that. Like it's not a problem, It was dark. It was dark. Okay.
It was dark. Great darkness. And I think so far a lot of characters, I'm trusting every word wholeheartedly. So when Treebeard says a thing, it's not that he got high on some forest juice that he's been drinking. It's like, no, he was, well, I mean, it really does feel like
what
it.
is that?
But it's like, I'm assuming that he basically was there. I'm like, Great Darkness? Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. The elves gave him life? Absolutely, they did. He was there. Like, I'm taking everything as absolute gold. And I'm not so sure we're always supposed to do that, but especially with someone like him, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the characters I trust the most.
Yeah, just I don't know why.
Initially.
But yeah, nobody has been like deceptive, and then it like comes out later that what they said was wrong. It really, he does just kind of write the story. Yeah. And you can trust it.
I feel like Aragorn was the only character that maybe initially you were unsure about, but as soon as you meet a character in Lord of the Rings, Like we met Grima Wormtongue in like the 6th chapter. And you're like, this guy is awful. This guy is so terrible. Like spits on the king's.
Oh my!
I love when they took the bucket and like washed it. I was like,
yeah,
that's great.
That's so great.
That was one of my favorites.
That was good.
But yeah, the Great Darkness. It's a strange little thing, but I definitely trust Treebeard. I feel like he is the all-knowing source of information in Middle Earth.
I would just stay with him forever. I'd be like, I'm good
so
here.
Great.
That's like your thing too. Plants, trees. Like...
Tree hugger. Ultimate tree
I was
hugger.
going through in my notes every tree they mentioned. Like most of them have had some major disease happen to them.
Really?
If anyone cares to
really?
know. Yeah.
What the?
Like elms, ash. I think they mentioned chestnuts, beeches. Yeah? They all have like terrible things. So like
you have the emerald ash borers, the chestnut disease
blight,
you were telling me, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So like
That's
I
sad.
was like, what does a 2025 Fangorn look like?
No,
it's like pretty empty. Not too much going on there.
I'm actually curious if in Tolkien's day some of those trees were going by the wayside. So like I know the more and more that I'm reading, the more I'm picking up on like environmental work that he's actually trying to portray in some of the stuff that he's writing. Like I think I got that with a few different things that he was writing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. 1973. I just saw a date. But I like in one of the previous chapters they gave Pippin that draft of drink, and it was really, really similar to the Miravor that Elrond gave Gandalf to like give them on their journey, and that thing like warmed them up, and it did the same thing. And this orc drink seemed like the Miravor, but it seemed like a cheap imitation of it. And it seems like the dark side in Middle Earth is selling these cheap imitations. They're like the fake market, and then like you get these real products from the good people in this. And I feel like the Ents are almost like that. Maybe he's mentioning these chestnuts and ash and these trees that are like have significant health issues in his world still. Maybe he sees that these things are happening and these trees are like, going away, and he wants to make a point that he's like, these are the oldest trees. These are the ones that have been around for the longest. You have to work to protect them because they can become Ents. Yeah. So I'm gonna take walks in the forest now and protect the chestnut trees. Did it mention what tree Treebeard is?
In the appendix, it hinted that he was a beech tree.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure what that was based on, but that's what I wrote.
Okay. Are you reading the appendix? The appendices
well, only because at the bottom it said see Appendix F under N.
Really
so I was like, oh, okay. And then I wrote Treebeard is a beech tree, I think. I forget what it was that I saw in there, but I think it mentioned him, and it might have said something about beech. But
they're pretty.
I thought it was interesting that Treebeard said Gandalf was the only wizard that cared about them. And then it made me think about Radagast, and I wondered, like, maybe he just never made it to this part of the world, or is he more just about critters, not trees?
Maybe,
like animals, not trees. He's like in the Hobbit movies. Did you see the Hobbit movies?
No.
Because we're gonna have to watch those when we read the Hobbit next, of course. Because he shows up there, and I still don't remember if he actually was in the book.
Yeah.
But in the movie, he's bizarre. He's a little zany. He's got a bird's nest in his hair, and like I think if I remember correctly, bird poop dripping down his face.
I think so,
Might as well have been in his mouth. I remember being like, oh yikes. So he comes up early in this because he's the one who stops Gandalf and says, Saruman needs you, and then sends Gandalf off to like get captured. But he is an animal lover. He shows up in the Hobbit being pulled on a sleigh by rabbits or something really weird.
Rustabel rabbits. I remember that section for some random reason. I just pulled that out of nowhere.
But he gives me the kind of vibe that he would love the trees.
Yeah.
So it just threw me off, and I've been pondering all wizard lore in these chapters because then I'm like, if Gandalf is Gandalf the White, and there's a White Wizard Council, is he now on the council? Is he the head of the council? How does wizard hierarchy work?
Well, I think, and I could be totally wrong about this, but I feel like I faintly remember hearing about this, that when Gandalf was going through it, which we got to talk about that in the next chapter, but he comes back and he essentially takes the place of Saruman, who's the White Wizard.
That's what I thought.
And like,
okay.
Maybe there's a vacancy for the Grey Wizard now. And no one comes for no one becomes the Grey Wizard, but maybe Radagast is like, oh man, maybe I should die and become the Grey Wizard. Because I feel like Radagast is less powerful. I don't know.
Because he's Radagast the Brown, if I remember correctly, right?
Because there's 5 wizards in Middle-earth. The red and the blue we don't know. I think no one knows who they are. Or green or something like that. I don't know what those are. But I don't think anybody knows anything about that. Maybe I'm totally wrong on this.
Well, Tom Bombadil, he could be the blue wizard.
Yeah. I'm speaking like an expert on this, and I have no idea.
But
he wears green, blue, and yellow, so maybe he'd killed them and he took their powers. I don't know. But then the 3 are Radagast the Brown, Gandalf the Grey, and Saruman the White. But now he's Saruman the Many Colors, so he like forfeited his identity. And now Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White. So essentially, the god of Middle-earth. I don't remember the name, Eru Iluvatar or something like that, which some people are railing me in some of my videos because I'm like talking like that. People are like, you need to know who this is. If you don't, you shouldn't even be making videos about it. Like, whatever.
That's so funny. It's like, you got to start somewhere, and I'm excited, so let me learn.
But I think potentially the god or the gods of Middle-earth sent Gandalf back to take the place of Saruman the White. So Gandalf is now Gandalf the White, taking the place of the most powerful wizard that they sent to Middle-earth, potentially. I might be totally wrong about that.
Is that why you're like into the idea of this all being fate? Because he like is sent back?
Which is literally my next question.
No.
Everything in this chapter seemed like it was guided by fate. Or chance, or people are calling it providence. Because if you look at the beginning of this chapter...
I don't believe in fate.
I don't really either.
So...
But if you look at the beginning of this chapter, Merry and Pippin just happened to come across the oldest creature in Middle-earth. It seems too plot-driven. I'm like, Tolkien, he's a plot-driven author, but I made a whole video about this.
It's only fate because you know that it ends good. So then it's a split between good and evil.
Nope.
Yes, and then everything that's good that happens, you label as it being fate.
No, not at all, because the bad things are happening, but I think the gods are literally... not twisting things. The gods are literally opening up avenues for Merry and Pippin to go down so that they see and they meet certain people. Why the heck? You're telling me on a random chance that Merry and Pippin walk into Fangorn and they meet the oldest living creature, the greatest tree herder in all of this stinking forest, this massive forest that's probably more than like 200 miles long. And then there's another point in this book too, where it mentions the only reason they went up there is because there was like a ray of light coming down into the forest on this spit of rock. And they're like, we need to get up there. And so there's like a clearing in the forest. But it is
random.
It is random.
Just because you know that it ends.
No.
Yes. I feel like fate is just like the means to the end, and you label it because you know that it happens.
It might be.
Well, to me, fate sometimes I like it because it covers up what could otherwise potentially feel like sloppy writing, because it's like one story can only have so much luck before that feels like, okay, how can all these random lucky things happen? But then when there's fate, which I think he might be hinting at, or guidance from divine powers, then I'm like, well, that makes me feel better about it. Because I thought that a couple times in these chapters. I'm like, what are the chances? And then he talked about Eomer and running into the orcs, and I'm like, you're right. The whole story would have been over if he didn't catch the orcs. He would have gotten the hobbits all the way back.
Even how Merry and Pippin escaped that one terrible orc.
Yep.
It said like he raised his hand to like do him, and the book literally says whether it be fate or some other random chance. Arrow goes right through his hand and it stops him. I'm like, at the very least, Tolkien is trying to get you to ask these questions. And one of my favorite parts about Tolkien too is he doesn't answer the question. So whether you think it's by chance, you can think it's by chance. Whether you think the gods are working in Middle Earth and forcing everything to go down some path, you can think that too.
Right.
I feel like it's a good combination between the two. But everything that was happening with Merry and Pippin in this chapter, I was like, it feels like the god of Middle Earth is trying to get good to win. So it's like giving Merry and Pippin opportunities in order to arrive at their destination, which is where he needs them to go in order to meet Treebeard, so that he can take down Saruman the Many Colors, and like they can really free at least this section of Middle Earth. It's like the god of Middle Earth is playing chess right now, like setting up a move like 3 moves ahead.
But Lizzie, you don't like fate.
I'm open. I don't know.
You're like, there's no fate in Dune.
I think I'm just not really thinking about there being like a puppeteer behind all of this orchestrating it. Like, I just kind of think of things happening in the moment because it seems so random. But then I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it could be there's some fate involved, but I like the idea of it being like random chance.
Yeah.
Or I mean, the stars could be lining, like everybody needs to be on the same page at some point, so like all this falls into place. But I don't know. I don't know.
I know something about it.
I also like I didn't pick up on, like, I don't know the whole deal with Gandalf being brought back to life and like being sent back. That is like my major. That makes it seem like fate. Like if Gandalf's like, so no, you're actually back in the story, then it's like, okay, obviously something is going on. Yeah,
there's something greater.
But
although I want to talk about the next chapter for what really happened with Gandalf, because that's like an interesting one. Well, so hold your chance discussion for a second.
I'll be here. You just let me know when you need me.
Anything else in this chapter before you go to the next?
No, I just wrote like what Lizzie said. Treebeard's so much smarter than I thought because of the movies.
I get their names messed up, but Saruman, the wizard.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was getting info from. Oh, I forgot his name already. The Treebeard. He said that. He was getting info,
which is crazy.
Me,
right?
Yeah. And then that's how he knew to navigate the forest with the orcs. And I was like, what the heck? I didn't even.
He used them.
Yeah.
Which,
And then he regretted telling him all that.
Yeah. That line made me think, how did Saruman fall? Like, he seemed like...
But he said he already was probably evil then.
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
Like, how much evil was he or something like that when I was like talking to him.
Like, I'm curious what the point was where Saruman was like...
But yeah, like when did he...
I need to go to the dark side, or I need to set up an army myself. I need to get
Or was he ever really good?
Yeah, honestly. Which is a dark question because it's going to make me reread like...
Yeah.
Anything else that he's in.
It's me like the faith stories of like how prideful you could be and you fall.
Pride comes before a fall.
And you want to become your own god.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Honestly, that's a great point. It's like it's like feels like the fall of almost like Lucifer right here.
Yeah.
Like promoting himself up to be like this god or something like that, and then all of a sudden he falls because of his pride. I'm curious what the moment was for him. I think it's just like power is attractive, and he's a powerful being in Middle Earth. And then in this moment, because there's the one thing where Gandalf is telling the story in the Council of Elrond, and he's like, Saruman is like, he's Saruman of many colors now, and he's calling himself Ring Bearer. And he's like, if he gets the Ring of Power, Saruman could potentially set himself up as the most powerful entity in Middle Earth. Like, no one can compete with him. So I think he recognizes that, and he's like, I want that.
But I thought they kept saying the other one.
Sauron?
Yes. Would never give up power. Isn't that what Gandalf was telling him?
Yeah.
Like, why would you choose that side? You can't share power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I don't know if he ever intended to share power.
Yeah, I don't think he did.
I think Saruman.
He's trying to set up
he wanted to be the guy.
Yeah, but how?
Which that's totally different from the movie.
First, maybe?
Because in the movie, he's like allying himself with Sauron. In the book, it's like, no, he's setting himself up as this totally independent ruler and kingdom. And like the orcs from Mordor, which is an interesting section, the orcs from Mordor hate the Uruk-hai.
Yeah.
He has them stamped, right? The white stamp.
Yeah,
the white hand,
exactly. Yep.
White hand.
Yep. The white hand of Saruman.
Is the eye of Sauron in the story yet? Like, is that it's like in the distance?
They've mentioned that, I think, twice. When Frodo puts on the ring, I think he sees the eye wreathed in flame. And then the white hand of Sauron on the army of the Uruks, there is the eye. The great eye is the emblem of the Mordor orcs. So that's on their armor, or they're on their helmets or something like that.
So does the rest of the company like understand what that is, though?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
I think so. But I don't know. I don't know
feel
how.
like they don't know.
Honestly, I think you're right, because it doesn't talk about that in the story that much. You feel like if that is something everyone knows, then it's something that they would want to talk about.
Yeah.
There's an eye wreathed in flame. That's Sauron. What does this mean? It's pretty strange. But I love the ending of this chapter. It was so victorious about their like march into Isengard.
Yeah.
And I love some of the lines that Treebeard had. And this is the last thing I'll say on this before we move on to the next chapter. But the book says, there is not that an old Ent can do to hold back that storm. He must weather it or crack. And he says in a bit, I think that now I understand what he is up to. He is plotting to become a power. He has a mind of metal and wheels, and he does not care for the growing things except as far as they serve him for the moment. And now it is clear that he is a black traitor. He has taken up with foul folk, with the orc, Burahum, or whatever he does. Worse than that, he has been doing something to them, something dangerous. For these Isengarders are more like wicked men. It's a mark of evil things that came in the great darkness. They cannot abide in the sun, but Saruman's orcs can endure it, even if they hate it. I wonder what he has done, and why, or are they men he has ruined, or has he blended the races of orcs and men? That would be a black evil. So it's interesting that Treebeard's even asking these questions. And then the last thing that he says, which I don't know I've written down, but I had in my book, obviously, I underlined in my book, but it was him talking about like how strong he is, how they're stronger than like trolls, how trolls are like a cheap imitation of them. And he's like, we can crush stone, and trolls are made like almost after stone fashion. So he's like, we can go into Isengard right now if Saruman doesn't start like casting spells, and we'll crush everything in there. And I love his like confidence in that. And so they're all singing this song of victory down this hill, going to Isengard, and I'm like, let's go! I'm so pumped at this section. It was so good.
There were a couple times in these chapters where the analogy of water or a dam breaking, and in the movies there is a dam, the Ents break. So I'm curious if that actually comes up in the Isengard area, or if that was just Peter Jackson with a little nod to that metaphor.
Yeah, honestly, that's a good point.
So I'm waiting to see that.
Yeah.
I thought Merry and Pippin were so sweet to Treebeard. I felt like they were like trying to hear the songs. They were genuinely interested. Yeah. It was like really cool friendship. They didn't seem nervous, totally content, which I thought was great. I'm just going through a few other notes here.
I loved, their first impression was incredible. Like, I was like, that's why I thought the Fate discussion was there too, because they're super kind to this guy. Or maybe I have the Fate thing, but they're super kind to this guy, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, it caught him off guard. Even the first thing that he said, Pippin was like, or Merry said, I think this forest is like actually kind of nice in the light. And Treebeard's like, that's nice of you to say.
He's such a good listener too. The dialogue is so balanced between them.
I love
and he trusts like that they're just telling the truth. He's like, who are these like little foolish thing like creatures? Like he's I don't know.
When he like lays down and he listens to Merry and Pippin tell the whole story from start to finish, and he's like asking them really inquisitive questions. Love Treebeard so much. Makes me so happy.
In the Ent song, it goes between Ent and Entwife, and then at the end, together we'll take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest. And I just thought, is that the Undying Lands?
Ooh.
And if the elves kind of gave them their voice, is there some of that elf pull to the west? Just the fact that it says west and it's implied they'd be together again. I don't know. It just made me wonder. They'd be going to the Undying Lands.
That's actually interesting. I kept thinking, I was like, they need a Maloran tree in this fight. one of the elves needs to wake up a Maloran tree, so that Maloran tree can just like one of the redwoods. You got a redwood coming across from America.
Yeah,
America.
Do you think the drink is like made in Fangorn? Because I don't think it'd be like sap, but I was like, what if there's
it feels like that. The things that they're drinking, and I like that there's
brought them in. The elves have that.
Maybe
they have their own drink.
I like that it was like sustenance to them. And I like that there were 2 different varieties of it. Or 2 different jars, but like they had one and then the other one tasted different and like filled them up, and they just had lembas bread because they needed to do it because they needed
out of habit.
But yeah, great chapter. All right, let's do the White Rider chapter 5. Another good one. You got a summary of this one?
I sure do. Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas explore Fangorn and meet Gandalf, who is alive. They catch up. They catch each other up. Well, Gandalf catches them up on what's happening, basically. So Gandalf does a debrief with them.
What did you think about the Gandalf reveal when he comes back?
It was so suspenseful.
Yeah, it really was.
Like I knew it was coming, and I was still on the edge of my seat.
He was just holding out for us. He was like, I thought it was so good. You could tell. I felt like when Tolkien was writing that, he was like smiling the whole time.
Yeah.
He's like,
"Yep,
I'm gonna bring him back.
You're gonna love this."
Yeah. And then was that Saruman as the little gold old man?
Gandalf said it was.
Well, he didn't know, but he thought it was.
That's
as
so weird.
Yeah, it might be Radagast. It might just be a random old man.
Yeah, because Gandalf said it wasn't him. Because they asked him about it, like, "Oh, that was you by the fire last night, right?" And he's like, "No, it wasn't me."
Yeah, and then he's like, "Fine, Gimli, I'll forgive your rudeness to me before, but." Because Gimli's like, shoot him, he's coming. He's on top of the hill, panicking. I was dying at that section.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I feel like if it was Saruman, though, he would have done something. Like I don't know why he would just appear. It's so anticlimactic.
But it does talk about how he was literally headed out to meet his Uruks, and then all of a sudden he ran into them. And then maybe he just like saw them at the fire and backed away and like ran away. But wouldn't he overpower them? Wouldn't he do something?
How far you would see a fire from? Yeah, and then he just walked right up into. Unless that's his point, is like that's an intimidation.
Yeah, it might
technique
be intimidation.
Or something.
Weird. But it also seemed like if a wizard, like any of these wizards, look frail, is that just putting on a front? Like even like Aragorn said, as soon as Gandalf revealed himself, like, what spell did you have on our eyes or something like that we couldn't tell it was you? Would it be the same thing with some random old man by the fire? Because it could be any wizard, we just don't know. And are we ever going to find out?
Or it might not be a wizard. It might just be like a pretender or something like that.
Yeah. I was like, could it just be a guy who's
Wormtongue?
Like, hey, what's going on?
I know. I was like, it could
or like
be.
He sent somebody.
It's not one of the Black Riders or the Nazgul because they can't cross the river yet. They're not allowed. Daddy's got a curfew for them.
Did you know about the eagle, and that's why you were asking that?
No, I didn't. That was so
crazy.
Cool. I love how that came
I'm so
back.
glad that came back.
I know, and that whole story was cool too. But one of the biggest questions I had is, what happened to Gandalf? Did he actually die?
Well, I asked my brother.
What did he say?
He said he went into like timelessness.
And that's what he talks about a little bit. Yeah,
like he was just like wandering in between like space and time.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like he didn't have an explanation, and I didn't want any spoilers, but yeah, because it wasn't like death as like the end, like period at the end of the sentence. It was just like you just kind of go into non-existence, but then like it's still you that's getting pulled out from that again.
Yeah.
It's not like like a reincarnate version of yourself. It's just like it's still you. And then he's like laying naked on the mountain. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, there's a big storm up there. But yeah, I don't know, because he is definitely like, he doesn't remember things, but then he knows things that he had forgotten already. So I feel like he just is a different version of the same person.
Yeah.
Maybe he lived like
He
he's an alternate life or something.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Like, I think the movie does a good depiction of it, but in the movie, I always thought like he died and came back to life. In the book, I'm like, I don't know. Like, he was hovering on the edge of death, and he just wasn't able to die. And like, so he was just like in this timeless state for what he thought was like thousands of years. Because he mentions that, but I don't know.
Could it just be like a really deep dream, like almost like being in a coma or something?
Honestly, yeah.
Or like you're exhausted, so you just pass out, and he could have slept for like 3 days or something. Yeah. I don't know. I don't like all that fluffy stuff of death and coming back and whatever. It feels like a little too vague without a reason. Like in Harry Potter, it didn't bother me because it was kind of like, oh yeah, we can see why this might happen. But here it feels a little weird. So I like thinking about it as if he didn't die. It feels a little easier to me. Like, I was just up there, he had a fight. Yeah. And then it was mentally for him, he was in some weird place, but it was a life-changing experience. Yeah. And then he wears white.
Yeah. I loved the description of his fight too. Like they talk about how he goes to the deep, like from the deepest depths to the highest heights they fought. And then I loved this one little section. In my mind, I have this picture of it. But it's really creepy at first because he's like, I went to the deepest pit. That abyss and that chasm goes real deep into the earth. And then he's like, I think what he says is like, there's nameless evils down there. There's nameless things down there. I'm like, there's probably things worse than Balrog down there, which is why I think the line that he says later about Treebeard being the oldest thing under the sun makes me terrified for the oldest things that are probably really deep in the crevices and the cracks of the earth. I'm like, there's a whole different story attached to this. And I think I faintly remember this, but I think one of the Narnia books happens all underground. I think the Silver Chair is like all underground. I'm like, Tolkien and Lewis just had like a buddy conversation about like, they're like, let's talk about some dark and deep things under the ground.
Yeah.
But I love that line. But then he like comes back up and he finds like the great stairs or whatever, and Gimli's like, they exist.
They're
no
real.
Way.
That's happened so many times in this story. Yeah. People are like, that's not just a legend.
Yeah. My favorite one was the Hobbits with Éomer and all his buddies. Hobbits aren't real. They can't be real. But then, I don't know. I think it's just like an interesting story of like whether or not he actually dies or not, and what really happens after that. So.
I was sent back until my task is done.
Yeah, maybe.
So he's like not even on his own time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it's like your boss.
Saruman could be corrupted.
Yeah.
And so I think Gandalf could too. And he's in the position of being good and he has good intentions. But this chapter, there was a moment where I was like, he's being tempted by the ring.
Yeah.
I forget which line it was. So
Gandalf.
Yeah, Gandalf, I think. I'm going to see if I can find it, but here we go.
When the eagles saw him?
Something about only hope. I've spoken words of hope, but only of hope. Hope is not victory. War is upon us and all our friends, a war which only the use of the ring could give us surety of victory. It fills me with
Dang.
I
great
literally
sorrow
circled use.
and great fear, for much shall be destroyed, and all may be lost. I am Gandalf the White, but black is mightier still. Then he rose and gazed out eastward, shading his eyes. So I'm like, he's really looking intently,
Oh my
as if he
gosh, I
saw
missed
things
this.
far, far away that none of them could see. Then he shook his head. And in my head, that was a long pause. Then he shook his head. No, he said in a soft voice, it has gone beyond our reach. Of that, at least let us be glad. We can no longer be tempted to use the ring.
Dang.
We must go down. So I'm like, I literally think he's like, could we get it though? Could we? All right, fine. I guess I can celebrate that it's too far away for me to get to it. So I'm like, I think he was tempted
That's
right there.
actually crazy. I did not pick that up.
He had more power now. Like, if
Maybe.
you were powerful,
Maybe.
would you be more tempted?
Right. Like now that he's white.
That's true. Honestly, that's a great
Yeah.
point. Maybe like he has more power now because he says black is more powerful. So he's saying Sauron is more powerful. Sauron is the most powerful being right now.
Right.
To
right.
me,
He's all
the
colors, which makes
Yeah.
black.
no, I don't think so. Maybe. Well, maybe. Yeah. Honestly, that's actually an
Yeah.
interesting depiction. It does
That's
make black.
so true.
So, to me, the power ranking is like Saruman was next, which is why Saruman thinks he can take over if he's like, it's like the
Yeah.
1-2
Yep.
seed. And then maybe like Elrond is maybe more powerful. I feel like Elrond's more powerful than Gandalf for some reason. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
I kind of think so.
But like,
too.
or no, Galadriel. I'm going to say Galadriel
Oh,
is probably
nice.
Galadriel, then Elrond, then Gandalf, then Boromir.
Yeah,
Gimli. Then Gimli. We got to do like a power ranking of this. I was someone asked me an interesting question that they said if you can have any 9 characters in your ultimate fellowship, across literature, across movies, across
man.
everything, who would you pick? And then I watched this whole
That's
big
wild.
thing
That is
on
fascinating.
it was the superhero draft, and it was these 4 people competing in this like 5-person superhero draft. I was like, we got to do that at the end. We're gonna do like something like
nice, nice.
select 5 or people from the Lord of the Rings to be in your
Yeah,
in your team for a draft.
And I love
They'll
the
fight at
beauty
the
of
end.
this fellowship because that ultimate draft might not just be the power hitters.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
those who bring levity,
Yep.
those
Sam
who are going to be
Gamgee is
loyal.
definitely gonna be in
I love
there.
that.
Yep. That's an interesting line though. I like that he had like this big conversation with Gwaihir, the eagle, and the eagle kind of dropped him off. I think there was something that, that was another interesting line when Gwaihir is like, I could just drop you right now. You just like float down to earth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you're
And
crazy.
he's
so
like, no,
light.
don't do that.
Please not.
And then he takes him to Lothlorien, and he just like has a spa weekend in Lothlorien before he goes on and just pursues him. So
Not a bad deal.
I know, not a bad deal at all. Yeah, the fight with the Balrog is an interesting one. I think my all-time favorite thing in this chapter, though, was Gimli feeling shafted that he didn't give a message. Again, didn't get a message from Galadriel.
so funny.
And so he says he says Aragorn's message from Galadriel. I gotta read this because this is one of my favorites. Where now are the Dunedain, Elisar? Why do thy kinsfolk wander afar? Near is the hour when the lost should come forth, and the great company ride from the north. But dark is the path appointed for thee. The dead watch the road that leads to the sea. So, first of all, I'm like, we're going to get the Dunedain that come down and fight. We
Oh,
have
those
to,
are
right?
ghost
Yeah,
thing
No,
people?
those aren't the ghost things. I
Oh.
think these are like his actual people. But the ghost people are the dead that it mentions in here.
Yeah.
I think. Like the
That
last line,
would
it's
make
like,
That's what I
sense.
thought.
I think like he's saying like, it's
Whoa.
time to wake up the Dunedain from the north, bring them down to start fighting in this battle. So I'm like, are we to get them at Helm's Deep?
Isn't there no
I don't think-
Dunedain? Wait,
No,
I thought
there's
they were
like
all,
a bunch.
extinct or something.
Well, no, there's like the Rangers in the north are the Dunedain.
Oh.
So they're just like wandering their north. So I'm like, are we gonna get like a bunch of Dunedain that come
ranger
down and
army?
fight in this? God, I would love that. That'd be sick. But then it says his goal is to go to the dead. It says dark is the path appointed for thee. The dead watch the road that leads to the sea. So I think Aragorn is gonna have to take this path that leads to the sea. I don't really know. I don't know what leads to the sea. But that to me seems like the dead army. And like Galadriel is giving him this warning that he needs to go do this path, and maybe Aragorn understands it immediately. And then he says to Legolas, She sent this word: Legolas Greenleaf, long under tree in joy thou hast lived. Beware of the sea. If thou hearest the cry of the gull on the shore, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more. Huh?
Doesn't that? I thought that was like, don't get tempted by like the Undying Lands. Like,
I feel like that's what it means too.
Yeah.
Like, don't be tempted.
But
Yeah.
why would she say that? Because all elves are leaving Middle Earth. So like, isn't it saying like, wouldn't it be like, I want you to hear the seagulls so that you do feel this call to go to the Undying Lands, and that you realize your home is no longer in Mirkwood.
Wait, you want him to go to the Undying Lands?
Because all elves are leaving Middle Earth, whether we like it or not.
But she doesn't want him to.
Well, maybe
Does
it's just
he
a
want
warning,
to?
like, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more. Like, once you're close to the shore, once you can hear the birds, smell the salt air, like, once you're there, you'll never be able to go back to the forest. But is this a metaphor? Is this something deeper?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Is the Undying Lands still just an out for everything that goes on in Middle Earth? Like, they can just leave and be like, not my problem? Or
But no
does
one's ever
that
come
still
back.
affect
It feels
them?
like,
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Undying Lands do kind of feel like an out. They're like, oh, crap, Middle Earth's going under. Sorry, guys. The elves' time is over.
That's what I mean. Like, why can't we all just go together?
They're like giving the men the pat on the back. It's your time now. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah. You
Wait,
got this, guys.
You can't stay for another like 10 years to help us fight these things. Come on. But then, after that, my favorite section is Gandalf fell silent and shut his eyes. Then she sent me no messages, said Gimli, and bent his head. Dark are her words, said Legolas, and little do they mean to those that receive them. That is no comfort, said Gimli. What then, said Legolas? Would you ever speak openly to you of your death? Yes, if she had naught else to say. What is that? Said Gandalf, opening his eyes. Yes, I think I can guess what her words may mean. Your pardon, Gimli. I was pondering the messages once again, but indeed she sent words to you, and neither dark nor sad. To Gimli, son of Gloin, she said, give his lady's greeting, Lockbearer. Whatever thou goest, my thought goes with thee. But have a care to lay thine axe to the right tree. Then he goes, in a happy hour you have returned to us, Gandalf, cried the dwarf, capering as he sang loudly in the strange dwarf tongue. Come, come, he shouted, swinging his axe. Since Gandalf's head is now sacred, let us find one that is right to cleave.
Yeah.
I think that is so good. It's
He's
like my
so
favorite
excited.
section. I love that he gets so pumped when he gets this message from her. Oh, it's glorious.
He is so stinking loyal.
I know. Anything else in this chapter before we go on to the last? There's a bunch of good stuff here, but
I mean, yeah, there's just a lot of great lines. The
I know.
one that I loved when Gandalf got back to Shadowfax, I think he said this too. Far let us ride now together and part not in this world again.
yeah,
Just again that loyalty, like we're in this forever now.
yeah.
So great.
Yeah, there's so many good lines in here. The eagle discussion. Even even Shadowfax, how he runs. It's like the other two horses. I think this is in this chapter. The other two horses are like exhausted, but they're like running for pride next to Shadowfax. They're like, this is the real deal. This guy's it. Yeah, there's so many good lines here. All right, let's do the last chapter. The King of the Golden Hall. We got a summary of this one?
Sure do.
It's a good one.
Had to write it in small letters at the bottom of the page. Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Gandalf go to Rohan to save Theoden. They make friends and they get ready for riding out to battle.
Beautiful. What do you guys think of Edoras?
I wanted to go there.
Yeah.
So sick.
Yeah.
Just sounds awesome.
Gotta look up Ted Naismith Edoras.
Ooh, yeah. In the
Pulling her up.
Fangorn chapters, I was thinking of my time in Alaska. I might have mentioned this with the Forbidden Forest too, but
It's pretty sweet.
it's great.
And then you have Edoras right here.
Oh yeah, a little closer to the mountains.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I love the forest idea where in a really thick old forest that humans haven't touched, when you're walking like 20 feet and you turn around, you feel like you're in a whole new forest. And it feels like every turn you make is like you get more lost in it and thick. So I just remember that because the whole time in Fangorn was kind of that idea of these thick forests. You can't even orient yourself because you can't see the sky. Yeah. You're just kind of like lost in this world. And thankfully, Fangorn seems like a kind of pleasant world compared to the Mirkwood. All right, back to Rohan.
Yeah, that's why I like that they do notice that it's like a more pleasant. I think they were like the Mirkwood seems like almost under a disease. This just seems like thick and like you know, it's like a tough forest to get through. It's old. Yeah. Thoughts on Edoras? You guys like it? It's a cool city. Actually, one question that I have for this one. Is there, like, what is going on with Theoden? So, in the movies, I think they do a decent depiction of it. Because he, like, seems to get, like, younger as time goes on. Like, I think there's one line where, like, he looked, and, like, there are 3 wrinkles just disappeared off his forehead, and they didn't come back for a while. But what is he? Is he under a spell? Is he under... What is happening with him?
I have no idea.
Because it's...
I really thought it was a spell because the movie was so
clear about it. Yeah.
This, when I read it, I'm like, it is possible that there was no spell. It is possible that Wormtongue was just a not that nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, I was like,
yep.
I'm actually confused.
Yep. Which is interesting too, because in the
Wormtail.
Yeah. Any part of a worm we don't like. You know what I mean?
Both. Anybody named Worm in any book we don't like.
Yep.
That was an interesting point to me too, because in the movies, he's pretty ambiguous as well. You don't know if he's like a sorcerer, like just the name Wormtongue means like he's speaking poison. But there's a few things in this that I feel like Tolkien's commentary on some things, like he's like preying on Eowyn, which is pretty gross. Like he seems almost like a pedophile to some extent, which is really gross. And
but
then,
it took Gandalf to shine a light on that a little bit. Like,
exactly.
Nobody else mentioned it.
Yeah.
It was almost like, to me, Gandalf looked in his mind and was like, behind closed eyes, you looked at her or something, he said. I'm like, so maybe nobody else even knew, but there were just bad thoughts. And Gandalf's like, that's why I know you're a bad guy.
And I think there's a lot of beauty in that too, because after he says that, one of Éomer's lines is, yes, finally, like someone's recognizing this.
Right.
I'm sure Éomer has been saying that.
Yep.
And Eowyn's been saying that to deaf ears for years. And then all of a sudden, Gandalf recognizes it, and he's like, thank you. The hand of the king finally like recognizes what the stuff that we've been going through. Yeah. It has to be so validating right there. I think that's a fantastic little bit of writing. But I don't know. I think he's just like a weird dude. He doesn't seem like any kind of sorcerer, or like maybe he could be learned in those like dark arts or whatever it is. But he just seems like he's crafty with his tongue and just like knows how to keep people down. Or he doesn't seem like a messenger of Saruman that much. He's like a coward. His true colors definitely do show, because I think this chapter does a really good job of contrasting him and Theoden. Like Theoden, I was asking people in the Discord, I'm like, how old is he in reality? Because he goes from being like 105 in the movie to being like a ripe like 50 years old.
Yep.
In the books, they're saying he's about 70. So I'm like, he could be like that decrepit old man that's like sitting in that chair.
Yeah.
But then he could also be like the strong guy that we kind of see, and he has like a huge like figure in my head. But they were like, you need to stay back and like, man the hall while we go to war. And he's like, no. There's no chance. I'm coming with you. And then he grabs a sword and then they give the same chance and opportunity to Grima, which blows my mind. They're like, come to war with us and redeem yourself. And I love that they gave him. I love that they gave him that choice.
Crazy.
But then he's like, no. He spits on the king, or spits, and they wash it off. They're like, I think the one guy's like scrubbing it out on the rock, and then he just runs away.
But even then, Theoden wasn't like,
yeah,
I'm
go kill
free,
him.
you're evil. He was like, oh, nobody touch him.
Yeah.
Let him do his thing. It was like there was still a loyalty there for some
crazy.
reason.
Give him a horse if he
Yeah,
wants
like
it.
horse, let him do whatever he wants. I was like, huh? So it did leave me feeling like it's possible there was no magic involved here. Maybe.
Yeah. And that made it confusing for what is actually happening here, because there's a difference. Like I keep thinking, if this is just a natural thing that's happening, then Theoden is like almost metaphorically getting younger. He's not actually getting younger, but like he has this like bad influence out of his mind now. And now he can like go, like, it felt like Tolkien's idea of like, go get out of your house and touch grass and then you'll be healed. Because the way that he really heals him, that Gandalf really heals him, is he doesn't like, he puts a spell on him and the light comes in, and then all of a sudden he says like, let's go outside so you can smell the air. And then he goes outside and smells the air, and then he starts to like regain his strength from that. Like, this guy just hasn't been outside in a long time.
Right.
He's like stuck playing video games in his apartment.
And Wormtongue like restricts the news that he gets to. Like, he changes that and like stops the messenger. So I feel like as you're doing that, you also have more influence over that person, because you're their only source of input, and then like you can just create a whole world in their mind, and then he could have just like discouraged him into nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I'm not mad at the idea of there not being magic involved, but I also feel like if Wormtongue runs back to Saruman, then it's like, then he's serving him. But we don't necessarily know that he did that, right?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Just
that
from
was the part that annoyed me
extended
too.
scene in the
Yeah,
movie.
I know. Yeah.
If that was the thing.
Yeah. Well, we even know from the non-extended. In the non-extended, he's there, but he just doesn't stab Saruman in the back.
Oh, nice.
But that was... It's interesting. I actually kind of like the idea that there's no like magic involved as well, because I feel like that's speaking about other things that it could potentially be. Like, I do like this soft kind of magic system.
Yeah.
It's just more ambiguous, because I think this could help other readers going through other different things too. Like, if I don't know, this seems like an apt analogy for someone struggling with like, I don't know, depression, or like something that could be like I don't know, maybe just like you have bad influences in your ear and they're always telling you certain things, and then finally you break free from their power. Like, this seems like a very apt analogy for something that Tolkien is trying to drive at. I don't really know what it is yet, but I don't think he's ever gonna give an answer here. But I don't know. It just feels like there's this blanket over Theoden, and then he finally has it taken off, and then he's able to make like smart decisions about. Yeah.
I like that. Like, he kept saying, I wish you came sooner. Like, he wanted to kind of erase all that. But then he also was just still acting very kingly. He didn't just become subject to like whatever Gandalf ordered everyone to do. He was like, let me think about it. Let me make my decision. And like, I feel like he maintained his king persona throughout all of it, even though he was like, man, I wish you had come sooner and none of this happened. But he's still like himself at the end of it, which I appreciated.
And then, oh yeah, it's so good. I love that he like comes into himself at the end of it too. Like, it's like almost like this slow process, and by the end of this chapter, like, Theoden's become, I keep saying this of every chapter, but Theoden's become one of my favorites. Like, I love the people of Rohan so much, and Theoden's like this old man who's like decrepit and has like this terrible influence on him. And by the end of the chapter, he's riding out to war. His fingers know like the strength of his weapon now.
Yeah.
He's like with Eomer. I'm like, the whole thing, and even just him giving Eowyn the reins of this kingdom right now. He's like passing this off to her, and he's like, oh, this is perfect. You know, govern these holes. And I love Eowyn's little crush and Aragorn. They're like little flirtation.
They're like the eye contact written from both directions.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
it's so good. But Eowyn's even a greater character, just from the little that we know of her already. She's great.
I love Eowyn.
Yeah.
Does Gandalf have Jedi powers? Can he?
Yes.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
With Hama?
So yeah, at the very beginning, he said his eyes glinted under his deep brows as he bent his gaze upon the man. And something about that like terminology just felt like.
Wait, who's the man in that? Is that Theoden, Hama, or Grima?
It was Hama, I believe,
Okay.
because he's talking about Wormtongue, and he says, "All right, say no more."
I love that you mentioned this.
And then he says, "Yes, I will go." He answered slowly. But what name shall I report? Oh, that might have been to the guard at the beginning, but it still felt like there were a few times where he was kind of doing one of those like, like staring really intently.
Yeah.
And it left me by the end of this chapter thinking Gandalf can influence thoughts. Maybe not a ton, but again, a soft magic kind of because I do think there was magic here. I would like to not, but I can't help it. And when we get there, I'll see if I underlined the cane that Theoden had, that black something with a white handle.
Yeah,
I felt like there was
that?
something in the cane that was like
Same.
dark or
because Gandalf tells him to like drop it. Like he's like, don't use that anymore.
And so I'm like, again, I don't know, soft magic. It could be taken. But I think there was something.
Yeah, I'm with you. In this whole chapter, words felt so important for everything Gandalf was telling him to do and what to do. And at the same time, I think he was influencing and talking to people that are easily influenced. Hama was one of my favorite people in this whole chapter for a few different reasons. But in the beginning, when he is checking their weapons, Gandalf or Legolas gives him the bow. He's like, "This is the bow of Galadriel." He's like,
and he's like,
and he holds it. He's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "No." He's like, "I would do this." He's like, "No way!" And then he puts it down. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, okay." And then,
I will guard this with my life.
But then at the same time, he's defending his country because Aragorn's like, "I'm not." He's like, "You can't rip this out of my hands." He's like, "I'm taking Anduril, whether you want."
That.
Yeah, I love that. He's like, "I'm not leaving this." And then Hama takes out his sword and draws it on him, and he's like, "I have to take this." And then he's like ready to get in a fight for this because this is the king's orders, and he still follows the king. But then when he takes the sword, he's like, "No one will touch this or unsheath it." He's like so trustworthy with it. And so like Hama is just a boss over there, and then Gimli's about to get in a fight with him. But then I love that he's like, Gandalf's like, "You're not going to depart an old man from his walking stick." Or I think Aragorn says that later. But he's like, "I have to bring this in. This is like, necessary." And Hama's like, "All right, go ahead." He just seems like such an ADD, like excited person. And I'm like such a big fan of him.
I love that was in the book though. And the other thing that I was so happy was in the book is when Gandalf is like, "Oh, Sam went with him? That's good." And I was like, I'm so happy that's actually in the book.
He was pumped about that, I know. I love all of Gandalf's little like, I love too when Gandalf told him, he's like, "Go fetch Éomer." And in my head, because I know the movies, I'm like, crap. That means Hama's going to have to go ride all the way across the country to go get Éomer. But Éomer is really in prison in this kingdom. So he goes and gets him. And then like literally the next like moment it happens. And Theoden's like, oh, he doesn't know the strength in his fingers. And Gandalf's like, "Oh, you need to go fetch your sword so your fingers can know their strength." And Ham's like, "Hold on, I got Éomer." And Éomer's like, "Take my sword." I love this guy so much. He just seems so excited to like that his king is free now and that he gets to like participate in this. And I love that Éomer is there right by his side. And then Éomer is really like the next in line to take the kingdom, but Éomer is going to go fight with them. This whole chapter I was just nerding out about. It's just so good. But yeah, I was even going back to what you're saying. I was thinking the same thing about like the importance of words in this chapter. It makes me want to reread it a few times to see like what Gandalf was actually saying, and what some of these. I feel like there's so much symbolism in these. What did the cane mean? What did even like what is the representation of Grima here? Because he just seems like a normal person. Every moment that Theoden gets like younger and younger as the chapter goes on, are those specific things that Gandalf is saying that are like spell work? Or are they just more so like he feels unburdened by the things that have been burdening him? And then again, like even his son is dead. So you don't get that whole funeral scene where he's like throwing the flowers on the grave. You see the flowers when they're riding into the city, but it's a great chapter.
Gandalf, when they call him Gandalf Stormcrow, did he make that name up on the spot? Because he was talking about crows and stuff? Or is this some name we've ever heard before?
I don't think we've heard it before.
Or is it just a name here? It's like it doesn't seem like a kind name.
Yeah. I don't think we use it that much. I think it's almost the same as saying like someone's a warmonger.
Okay,
like,
nice.
I think like if you're a Stormcrow, you're someone who brings bad news. You're bringing news from the storm.
Yeah. All right, nice.
So I like to think he's just stealing this, but if not, he's got great nicknames just coming off the dome. Gandalf Stormcrow. I'm like, give me a nickname, dude. That sounds great. Yeah, that was at the very least he has good nicknames that he gives people.
I do feel like Gandalf, even if this was not magic and it was just a slap in the face, Gandalf had the magic side of this when there's like a flash of lightning.
Yeah.
Had cloven the roof.
Yeah.
And Wormtongue is sprawled on his face. Like this, it felt like that Dumbledore moment where he like just boom and everything goes crazy in a split second. Yeah. It felt like that here where there was just raw power, which I thought was really cool. And it felt even more crazy than in the movie. It was like a storm and then only Gandalf could be seen.
Yeah.
And it was like a loud noise and quick. And I don't know, I thought it was really cool. So there was definitely magic involved.
And targeted at Wormtongue.
Yeah, definitely.
Only one person is laying on the floor.
It was interesting. That's interesting that you say it too, because it did feel targeted. I feel like not everyone maybe could see this.
But
I don't know.
I just was flipping through this. He goes, down snake. This is Gandalf. Down on your belly. How long is it since Saruman bought you?
Yeah.
So, and then like, that was that other line, like, how long have you watched behind your eyelids? But like, even Gandalf is kind of inclined to think that he's working with Saruman. And then like 2 pages over, Theoden goes, I owe much to Eomer. Faithful heart may have forward tongue, which I loved. And then Gandalf goes, say also that to crooked eyes truth may wear a wry face. So
every once in a while, the character is going random proverbs. Like, I kept thinking
of
the one moment when Gimli and Elrond were doing that,
yes.
right when they were leaving. This was one of those moments where I'm like, all right, guys, just have like a little rap battle between yourselves.
It was so good.
I loved, too. It says, then it is true, as Eomer reported, that you are in league with the sorceress of the Golden Wood, said Wormtongue. It is not to be wondered at. Webs of deceit were woven in Dwimordine. Gimli strode a pace forward, but suddenly he felt the hand of Gandalf clutching him by the shoulder, and he halted, standing stiff as a stone. I'm like, you do not insult Galadriel in front of Gimli.
Nope.
Like, here you have Wormtongue, like, oh, the sorceress of the Golden Wood. She's like terrible. She's weaving webs of deceit. And Gimli's like, all right, let me just take this guy's head off. And he doesn't even have a weapon. He's like, I'm going to take this guy's head off with my bare hands.
I love that he got the best gift, and then his message was just like, I'm thinking of you. Like, that too is so funny.
And then he's like charged up with energy. It was so cute.
Did Gandalf do a little spell? Or did Gimli just stop and was like stone?
Yeah, like a little Petrificus Totalis.
I actually felt like it was like he locked him in place a little bit.
That's
Maybe it was just
interesting.
a touch, but that's how I read it, because I thought, didn't he make him kind of like stone when they first saw him in Fangorn Forest too? So I thought maybe he's got a stone spell.
Maybe
so
now that he's the
know.
White, he can like exercise all these.
He's got a few
more.
extra powers.
Yeah, he's got a bigger arsenal. He's like, oh, I didn't know I could turn someone into stone. And he just like lays a hand on him. He's like, because it does say he kind of just stood there frozen.
It feels like Gandalf's will has a little bit more power in whatever direction he points it. So, but again, whether magic or not, I don't know, and it doesn't make a difference except just in our own minds. But it's fun to
That's a
guess.
Cool point. It does feel like I didn't really notice that, but it does feel like Gandalf has like a little bit more power than he did previously. Like before, when he was doing spell work, he either was forgetful, like he couldn't remember the password, or like, I mean, it's a Balrog, so it's like a pretty significantly powerful sorcerer itself. But he was like doing a spell to seal the door, and the Balrog stopped his spell, like shut his mouth. But here, he's just like everything's succeeding that he's doing. He just seems like not a. He seems like not significantly more powerful, but more powerful.
Yeah.
Maybe once
Cool.
you're dead, you can get away with more stuff.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I've seen, the realm of the dead. I know what they're doing over there. I've learned a few spells in my day. But dang, Theoden at the end, or even at the middle of this chapter, was so great. I loved Theoden. I loved. It says, slowly Theoden stretched forth his hand. As his fingers took the hilt, it seemed to the watchers that firmness and strength returned to his thin arm. Suddenly he lifted the blade and swung it shimmering and whistling in the air. Then he gave a great cry. His voice rang clear as he chanted in the tongue of Rohan a call to arms. Arise now! Arise! Riders of Theoden! Dire deeds awaken. Dark is it eastward. Let horse be bridled, horn be sounded. Forth, Erlengas! Like I'm like reading this in the other room today, and I was like standing up, like cheering. Let's go! I was so pumped. I'm like, this is a king that I would follow. I love this. And then I also love the moments that Aragorn has in this too. Like we're getting more and more frequent of these scenes where Aragorn is seen as this insanely kingly person,
especially when he was talking to Gandalf.
Yes.
And he had his hand on his sword and he was all tall, and then Gandalf was really small.
Yep.
That was a big moment.
Because I'm like, if he's making Gandalf the White look small compared to him,
yeah,
he's so ready.
Like this guy, I know he's getting more and more ready every single day.
And he's flexing that king line pretty often, like to the guards and stuff. And I'm just surprised because in the movie it feels like he's ashamed still.
Yeah, he doesn't want it.
He's not even ready at all.
Yeah.
But in the books, he's warming up to the idea pretty quick.
And I like the change in the movies, but I also, the more and more that I'm reading this, the more and more that I like how into it he is. And I like this too because it's like he wants to get there, but he just can't. So it's like he's marching around the city of men that he's like really trying to get to, which is Gondor. And he's like, crap. Because when he's talking about, because when they're going down the river, he's like, finally I can go to, it's like my heart really longs to go to Minas Tirith. He's like, I have to go follow Merry and Pippin. Then he goes, follows Merry and Pippin. Then he meets Gandalf again. He's like, crap, now I have to go defend Rohan. So he's like getting into these battles that he doesn't want to get into, but he's like growing in his kingliness even more, and he's becoming an even better king because like all these things are happening that he's seeing and that he's witnessing. And I'm like, even with Theoden, like seeing what Theoden has gone through and what he's going through. Got malls in there. I'm like, this is even going to make him a better king. Seeing like the power of words and like seeing the significance that someone like Green Wormtongue can have on a person.
Yeah, you're right.
It's so good.
In the movies, I think Aragorn's horse was called Brego.
Brego, yeah.
Brego. And Brego is the son of Oral. And his horse is not called Brego yet. So I'm like, I'm just curious if we're going to meet Brego in the future or if it's just they changed
What's
it
the
for
other
movie.
horse? I just keep saying A-Rod, but it's not A-Rod. But that's
I
how I
think it's
read
Arod.
it.
Oh, yeah,
Arod?
Arad,
Arad,
Hasselfell.
nice.
Hasselfell and Arad?
Arod.
I think.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, those
Oh,
two.
and then he was like, me and Shadowfax have like a bond of love. And I was like, yeah,
I
you
know.
do, you do.
You
More
sure
pets. I was
do.
like, I
So
love that
cute.
so much. Now I want to go back to the scene with Bill and Sam, and I'm like, I wonder if Gandalf would have treated that differently now that he has a bond. He has a bond with Shadowfax.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like,
right.
Sam has the same bond with Bill the Pony over there, and Gandalf's here. Oh, we have to let him go. He's not going to deal with it. I'm like, now you probably couldn't tear.
Because what did he say?
Yeah.
We're never going to be apart again or whatever.
Lovers over here. I love
Well,
this.
You made Sam
Is
let him
Bill
go.
like the Lord of the Donkeys though, or is he
Yes.
just another donkey?
No, Bill is the Lord of the Donkeys.
Absolutely
We know
he
that Bill
is.
is the Lord of the Donkeys.
He's got a brain in there.
Who is the Lord of the Donkeys again? Who is the one that
What?
it was the
Of the donkeys?
you remember Tom Bombadil like sends him with this one pony that's like the leader of the pack and like
I do not remember
Wow, it's
that.
far back. I mean,
I know that's real far back.
I don't remember.
The Lord of the Donkeys.
The old
Tom-
forest, Tom Bombadil.
Pony name Fatty Lumpkin.
Oh yeah.
Fatty
You guys remember that? It feels like
Lumpkin.
ages
Of course
ago.
I do.
That was in the first stage of our
I
journey.
forgot. Fatty Lumpkin. Terrible name, but
I know.
Lumpkin. This line cracked me up so much. Gimli is talking with Legolas, and he goes, "Nonetheless, this is not the warfare that suits me. How shall I come to the battle? I wish I could walk and not bump like a sack at Gandalf's saddlebow."
Poor Gimli.
I was dying. And then he's like, "I love my feet better."
Yeah.
It's funny to see Gimli with all these different people, because in the movies I feel like it was pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Just him and Legolas hanging out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's just, well, Eowyn, right?
Yeah.
Took him.
I would have loved so much to see, like, because he's not comedic relief in the books. But he is at the same time.
I think he is.
Yep.
He's
Like,
just deadpan.
I
Like,
know,
he's not
yeah.
trying.
Exactly, which makes him so much more funny. I would have loved if they pushed into that a little bit more in the movies. Like, he is super funny in the movies. I love him in the movies, but I would love for him to like be the guy that's defending Galadriel. Like, they should have made that an ongoing joke in the movies. Like, that would have been
Yep.
perfect. They have so many opportunities when like they meet Eomer.
Yes.
If Eomer is like, oh, like the Lady of the Wood, she's like a sorceress. I want Gimli to like say something quippy to him. And even in this moment, I want him to be like the one that's stepping forward. Like that to me is such a good movie moment. When all of a sudden Grima Wormtongue out of nowhere just insults Galadriel, and then all of a sudden in the background you just see Gimli like stepping forward, about to rip this guy's head off. I'm like, there's so much good comedy here. And then even in that line that you were reading, because he's like, I want to start hewing the heads of orc and not men or something like that. Like, he's like, they're a little lower, so that's why he wants to get level with them and start fighting. Gimli is so funny.
And they left Eowyn. Eowyn stays at the house,
which is interesting.
Which she's like, no, the women ride out. Like, they said that in the movies.
Yeah, in the movies,
I don't know why they emphasize that.
And she would be like, if the battle doesn't go well, she's in charge, right?
Yeah.
Like, she'd be the queen, which is cool. Also, I think Hama was the one who mentioned that, so way to go. I hope that he ends up with her. You know,
I know.
The movie may have gone a different way, but I was like, I think he's got a little crush.
Wait,
Hama and Eomer?
Yeah.
Or wait, not Eomer.
well, you never know.
Eowyn.
Yeah, because I think he was the one who suggested it to the king when the king's like,
Yes.
well,
Yeah, I think
where am
so.
I going to
Yeah.
find somebody? And I think he chimed in like, well, you do have somebody else here.
Yeah.
Which I just thought was funny that he's thinking that before the king even thought of his own niece.
Well, that makes me think that she's, because
sister.
he says she is loved by everyone.
Yeah,
And
which
so
is
I'm
so
like,
good.
She would be such a good queen. Honestly, I think she, from the little that I know of Eomer and Eowyn, I think Eowyn is a better role for that. I think Eomer is obviously like a better general, like, but he almost seems to be losing the control of some of his men. His men are like back talking him in the previous few chapters when like
fair point.
they were like discussing. I think it was one of the people over there was like rolling his eyes at the suggestions of Eomer, like letting them go. But Eowyn seems beloved by everyone there, so I'm like, she'd be a fantastic queen. And we barely know her, and I already like love her. I think she's great. So yeah, I love that there was like just suggestions of that. I don't know. I just love, like, now that this curse is gone from Edoras, I love all these characters so much. Like, Eomer becomes cooler in my eyes. Eowyn is cool. I think Theoden is so fantastic in like his humility here and like his generosity. I love that he becomes king, and then Grima's like, keep me here, I'll look after your riches for you. And then I think you see how ungreedy he is, because the next greatest thing that he has is probably Shadowfax, and he just will like gladly gives that away to Gandalf. I'm like, that is a baller king. I love that.
And he feels bad that he doesn't have more gifts.
Yeah.
So he's just like, guys, go down there, help yourselves, pick out something
pick
great.
out any armor, whatever you want. It's all yours. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. You guys have anything else in this chapter? I love these little flirting moments. This is the last line I'll read.
Touch their hands.
Theoden drank from the cup, and she then proffered it to the guests. As she stood before Aragorn, she paused suddenly and looked upon him, and her eyes were shining. And he looked down upon her fair face and smiled. But as he took the cup, his hand met hers, and he knew that she trembled at the touch. Hail, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, she said. Hail, Lady of Rohan, he answered, but his face was now troubled and he did not smile.
Yeah,
Ouch.
is that?
What do you mean, what is that?
Like, why?
Because he's got his mind on his one true love and he feels guilty.
Yeah, I was going to say,
looking
it
at
actually
her,
felt like he
Eowyn.
was a little torn, but he kind of made the decision. He's like,
Yeah.
I got to friend zone her because
Yes.
it's how I'm feeling. And so he's like, I'm not going to smile.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he was already checking her out from across the room in like a couple pages earlier. He's like, she's pretty fair over there.
Yeah.
And so then I feel like he's like, I can't lead her on. So okay.
yeah, for sure.
But he doesn't have the necklace, right? What was that?
No,
I meant
he
to ask
does
that.
have it.
He does have
Oh.
it now because
I thought
Galadriel gave it to him.
But I thought we said like that
But we
wasn't
don't-
a necklace.
Well, that's the thing. I think he has it, but I don't know that he has it. I read that to mean Galadriel gave him the necklace that we see in the movie that
Okay.
represents the love.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of, the question I still have is, does that represent I'm going to marry you? I'm choosing not to go to the Undying Lands and I'm going to be a human now? Or is it more vague than that? I don't know. But it certainly to me was like a commitment of some kind.
Okay.
Did you not think of it as a commitment?
I forgot if it was an actual like necklace or if it was something else. Because I remember it just being described differently. And then I was wondering, because in the movie it's like he can just like pull his chain out and it's like obviously like I'm taken, you know, like
yeah.
Then I was like, is that not gonna happen?
But you're right, and it hasn't come up since then. And we in the book has not concluded it. We only know like spoilers from the movie, but the book has not really given any more than Galadriel's vague promise of her granddaughter.
Yeah.
So
and
then
nothing
you're
in
like,
this
what?
book so far.
Yep.
About
It is unmentioned.
Arwen.
Almost done.
We're getting there. Yeah, we're pretty much done. You guys have anything else in this chapter?
No,
Not
that was
really.
it.
I do think it's interesting too, the difference between like the decisions that the characters make. Like I'm not gonna fault the movies for this, but like Gandalf, Theoden seems like a weaker king in the movies. Like as soon as he's released, it's like great, it's a cool moment, but then he just doesn't seem quite as strong as he does in the books. Like in the movie, there's this disparity between what Gandalf thinks he should do. Like, don't flee to Helm's Deep. Like, fight him, but don't flee to Helm's Deep. And then all of a sudden, he empties the whole city of Edoras, and they're fleeing to Helm's Deep to protect themselves. I'm like, I understand that for the plotting of the movie, but in the book, it's just like smarter. It's like Gandalf's almost in agreement with him. Like everyone is in agreement with him. They have to go fight him, and they're probably going to do this in Helm's Deep. That's like the only natural location that they can go do this, and they're going to leave like the women and the children behind, and Gandalf just seems like on page with him. He's like whispering smart, good advice in his ear, and Theoden is taking this smart, good advice, and he's not like opposed to Gandalf in this moment. Like he sometimes seems like he is in the movies. So I think he's so much stronger of a character in the books. He's like a king that I would love to follow. So I'm a big Theoden fan right now. I think he's fantastic. I like the small little, not even small. I like the changes that we get in the book. For who he is. So, favorites. Let's do. Is this still the basket of mushrooms? What is it again? The gifts of Galadriel. The golden hairs.
Hair.
The golden hair award. So, what's your favorite
Why can't
moment?
we do that necklace?
Sorry.
That's better than hair.
Honestly, that's not a bad idea. Yeah. What is that called?
How
don't know
about
if
we
it's a name.
could give the hot tamale? We could give our necklace to that person.
Yeah, I like
Nice.
that. I like that. Who's the hottest character? Who is your who wins the basket of mushrooms or the golden or the Galadriel's gifts? Who wins Galadriel's gifts? And what's your favorite moment?
I think hot tamale. I'm ignoring the things.
Yeah, I know.
Is Eowyn just
Okay.
because
No, respect.
it's just how it needs to be.
Agreed.
And then I would say favorite character. I kind of want to say Gandalf in these chapters actually.
Wow.
Because I feel like Theoden might have his moment in like the next chapter too.
Okay.
But I really like Gandalf. when he like reconnects with the trio and like that whole conversation. I don't really have a favorite moment. But yeah, character.
But there's so
Gandalf.
many good moments.
I know.
You have to.
No, I'm just kidding. You don't have that one. I think my favorite moment going off of that is Gimli defending Galadriel a few times in these chapters. It was just like some of the funniest writing too. I loved it so much. I think Eowyn is probably my hot tamale too. Lots of babe energy there. Respect. And then I think Theoden's my favorite in these. I mean, it's tough. Treebeard or Theoden. They're two totally different chapters. But I'll put them both as number ones. I love Theoden for like how good of a king he is, I think. And like how he's coming out of this like this freeze he's in. And then Treebeard is just, everything about him is fantastic. I love that he is the one that is like leading them into war, and like he's convinced, and the Ents make this decision together that they need to take responsibility and go to war, rather than they all don't think this, and Merry is the one that, or Merry and Pippin are the ones that kind of convince them otherwise. I just love that there was like a moment where Treebeard gets furious and he's like, oh, I need to calm down. Yeah. And then I guess he convinces them to go to war. I think everything about him, his non-hastiness, his listening skills, his storytelling. Yeah, he just lays down as stiff as a board. I love him. It's great.
My honorable mention is going to go to Éomer, because this chapter mentioned, I think Gandalf said it, that if he didn't cut off the orcs, bad things would have happened. So it's just, big impact on the story.
Huge, yeah.
But I think my favorite character, I'm going to say Merry. I think Merry and Pippin both together, nice. But like I think Merry just had a couple moments of like being really in tune with Treebeard and the forest, and he was content. He was asking questions, and like Gandalf said, they're just two stones that start an avalanche here.
Yeah, agreed.
So again, the impact, and reading those chapters, I really liked it. But my favorite moment was when they were right outside of the Golden Hall with their weapons, and kind of like that tension. Will Gandalf get the staff in? They're wondering at all the awesome weapons these dudes carry.
It's so cool.
Hot tamale, probably the Entwives.
Oh, great.
Because we can't give another one to Eowyn. She's got enough.
Great pick for the Entwives. That's promiscuous little ladies.
Yeah, always looking for whiter blossoms. Come on now.
It's got to be a euphemism for something.
Yeah, he's being too specific about that.
I know. You definitely know there's some woman reading this in like another land that like dated Tolkien, and she comes to this section. She's like, "What? He's talking about me here."
Because I moved to Japan for the cherry blossoms.
Yeah. It was exactly that.
I think I got them all.
Well, Jen, you got anything?
Who was your favorite? Favorite anything? You got any highlights?
I don't know. I like Treebeard.
That's all we need.
Excellent. That's it.
That's all we need.
That
we like him too.
Scene.
Treebeard's so good.
Great dude.
I didn't get to the last chapter, so
I know, yeah.
you guys,
you'll have to catch up for us for next.
Characters.
That's why it was good for you to sleep through that part, so that we didn't spoil anything.
Exactly. Love that.
Teamwork.
Well, thanks for joining us on our journey of the Fellowship of the First Time Readers.
See ya.
Bye, guys. The next chapter is called Helm's Deep.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm pumped. I can't believe how fast that is. I'm like,
I know.
Not that I was expecting
away.
it to the end, but I'm like, wow, it is here, and it's not even that long of a chapter too.
All the books.
Yeah, it's all three. So like we're not halfway, but we're getting close.
Flotsam and Jetsam. Nope. No idea.
No, I think we're just like they're all similar.
Wow. There's 5 chapters left. How are we gonna break this up? Want to do 3
there's
then
only
2?
5 chapters left? What the?
To last.
Helm's Deep.
The Road to Isengard.
The Forbidden Pool.
Flotsam and Jetsam.
So many things.
That sounds like.
Yeah, let's break it up. Let's do 2. 2 next week? Or
Nice.
2 weeks in 2 weeks? Flotsam and Jetsam.
So Helm's Deep.
What is that? I
And
have to find what that is.
whoa, I didn't expect there to be a chapter title. I don't even know what it is.
That's what we're talking about.
What?
Flotsam and jetsam? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
talking about the plantier. You know what the plantier
I don't know what
is?
the plantier is either.
Flotsam and jetsam.
It
Sound
sounds like a
twin cats.
I feel like that's isn't flotsam and jetsam like things that float?
I was just gonna say flotsam. I thought was like
Yeah.
bubbly scum
Yeah.
on top of like moving
What?
water. Like a waterfall creates flotsam. I'm making this up, but it's
Ooh.
something ish.
Should
video game.
It's it is a video game, a survival game. The wreckage of a ship and its cargo, floated or washed up by sea.
Oh.
Oh.
Jetsam.
Well,
Debris.
bad things are coming from the sea.
Jetsam is
anyway.
debris that's thrown over by a ship.
Oh.
Ships.
Well, well, well.
I mean, I'm sure this
sea.
is more than one meaning. I'm sure this is like the flooding of Isengard, but
Oh.
I don't know. Interesting.
All right, let's get you home. You did great, Jen.
Everyone, thanks for watching the stream. Keep up to date with the videos, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.